So I got the chance to see Michael and I have some thoughts. Before diving into my review, I'd like to ask that you consider subscribing to the channel and liking, commenting, and sharing this video. As a new channel, all engagement helps boost our visibility and is very appreciated. To start, I fucking love that they open on the He. That literally is worth the price of admission alone. And the opening of this movie set a pretty energetic bar. The stumping of the crowd, the concert lights, the slow-mo, it got me really excited for where things could go. I really wanted to see one of those performances. But maybe that's how all of these biopic movies open. I haven't seen many of them, so I wouldn't know. However, I don't think the rest of the movie ever fully delivered on what was possible. Overall, I thought the film was good, very standard biopic fare. For me, I didn't get anything I didn't expect, but I think it's certainly an enjoyable watch. The performances from Jafar Jackson, Giuliano Valdi, and Coleman Domingo are all really strong. Shout out to the breakout star here that is Giuliano Valdi. I really hope to see him get more work off of this. I'm 100% sure he will. He's so endearing and has this magnetic charisma. I don't say this lightly, but all three of these performances themselves are Oscar nomination worthy. The actors are really giving. But the hindrance here is that I don't think the writing ever quite meets the level of the performances. There isn't that one standout Oscars moment either that usually guarantees a role, a nomination, or serious consideration. Although I've certainly seen worse nominations and wins, and Jafar definitely invests himself in this performance, so Academy, do whatever you will. The problem here is that the movie lacks a real sense of pointed depth. This whole construction just feels like a best hits catalog of not just the music, but also the events surrounding Michael's life. We flow through things like bullet points being checked off rather than ever really sitting in a matter or expanding on the nuances of a situation. I was wishing we got a bit more of the in-between. My best example of this is when Michael buys his chimp and he makes the point that he saved him from a lab that was testing on animals. A really interesting real-life connection. But I would have loved to see Michael doing the research or purchasing the chimp. It's treated like a Fast and Furious character reveal. Well, everyone knows Michael has a monkey, so let's just skip to the part where he's there. We have to depict that he had a monkey. Rather than really fleshing out that relationship, I really wanted them to get a lot more personal and situated in Michael's perspective. The movie actually has a lot of great points of emphasis they're attempting to make. I love the thread of Peter Pan and Neverland that connects to the Arrested Development and obsession with animals. I just wish they'd gone further on their emphasis and even brought those to the front of the story. I'm sure those mattered super personally to Michael, and to see this battle over control and self-actualization be tethered to these childhood significances and that be the main emotional anchor for the storyline would have been really interesting for me. I was fascinated to see how alienated he was from the world. Like, we know it, duh, but the scene where he was excited to play Twister and everyone else was like, yeah, nah, we go into the club, was really effective actually. Still, I think there was a bit of something missing. I wanted to feel more of how the world was evaporating around him, especially as he entered adulthood and was caught in this weird transitionary phase where he's really become the most famous man in the world, but also mentally can't connect to any of his peers. What was that hurt like to him personally as the world kind of moved past the inner child and only saw the star? Was it something he was ever conscious to, or just a feeling in his life? For example, the jump between child and current Michael was too abrupt. It just happens. And the portrayals are so starkly different, and not by accident. There was something that happened in those transitionary years. I would have liked to see the transition more. What really stunted him? The problem is that cut happens between a high point concert that seems really fun and older Michael just reminiscing out of a window being like, I want to go solo. Okay, but why? Genuinely, I'm curious. It seems like that was a pleasant memory and a pleasant memory of being in the band. Maybe those were the good days, but what's so wrong now? Or wrong in the years before this? Genuinely don't know. The information was not provided. This is where I think they could have expanded on the story behind every performance. Maybe for that performance near the Ferris wheel, it was make or break, or at least Joe Jackson made it out to be that way. If you don't hit your marks perfectly, you'll have something else coming to you. Then we have a new perspective on that scene, and it being the last thing we leave off on in the past informs us that there was likely just a ton more of that leading up to this moment of Michael reflecting and deciding he wants to strike it out on his own. We also get a sense of why is future Michael like like this in this sort of tense, arrested, developed state. Let these polarities be emphasized and juxtaposed. The stellar, bright performances to the stripping away of childhood that leads to this arrested innocence. This all just mostly boils down to me missing that anchor of perspective. I know certain moments are sad, but it would have been great to see Jafar get to process it as Michael and sit with him in some quieter personal moments. I mean, the world around Michael is so big, right? And these performances are so huge. So to get more macro with him would be a really great insight. As said earlier though, Jafar kills it. His performance fortunately does not come off as caricature. The voice is great and all the makeup and stuff is cool. If anything, as said earlier, it's just the writing that's holding the role back. They handle the character from this distance, like they're making a movie about an icon rather than a human. And yes, he was an icon, but at the end of the day, he very much was a human being. So we really lack that interior experience. I said before that we were only ever going to see a third of the truth on any matter depicted, but I feel like this movie only ever showed 15%. I don't know Michael's life from an academic or super fan perspective, but I really feel like Joe Jackson's abuse was not shown in its entirety. At a certain point, I almost thought they weren't going to show the physical aspect of it at all. They show it once and then allude to it another time, but that's it. And I get not wanting to overexpose the audience to it, but I think if it happened, it's important to speak on frequency and at least imply through repetition to really show the environment he grew up in and what made Michael. I think if you're not someone aware of his story, you could leave thinking Joe Jackson was abusive, but was really just a domineering father. He's certainly the antagonist here, but I feel he's a bit sanitized. And I also feel at times the thread of his control over Michael gets lost. The movie is at its best when it hinges on the tension of their relationship, noticing how Michael is very much developing through this abuse and control. The movie is shot well in a very competent commercial sense, but I think the filmmaking is missing a sense of, again, I'm going to use this word, perspective. The editing is just basically cutting between the various pieces of coverage for every scene, rather than settling on a steady and controlled sense of shot choice. The movie feels like it's recording what's in every scene, but not necessarily capturing the feelings there. The music scenes are one thing, sure, and they have a lot of energy, but I mean this more for a lot of the conversation scenes. There are a few great moments when Jackson is in Miles Teller's office and they discuss firing his father, or maybe this was in the boardroom scene, but there was a great shot to the side and close on this somewhat distorted and larger Michael. I just wanted more of that. As a concert movie, this is spectacular. Michael fans will be very pleased. I was definitely bobbing my head along in my seat, and it was really cool to hear Michael Jackson's real, raw, stripped back vocals in some of the recording booth scenes. Those were actually mixes of the actors and Michael Jackson's voice that were able to be isolated from the original stems. Pretty cool. It was great to be reminded of how singular and spectacular he was, and shown why so. There was this real magnetism, and we get the Michael will return in Avengers Doomsday at the end. So if they move forward with a part 2, I do think focusing the film on how he was the victim of abuse and then diving into the potential second film with how he may or may not be a perpetrator of it later is a good choice. Well, that's it for my review of Michael. I definitely recommend it. If you're an MJ fan, I'm sure you'll love it, but even as a casual movie fan, it's an enjoyable watch. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and interact with this video by liking, commenting, and sharing. Was your he'd by this movie? I'll see you guys in the next video. Theme Addict signing out.